It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by Light and Fluffy for an hour of talk, music, and fun, along with our own Periscope Girl. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Hey. Howdy ho. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? We got another stellar show for you today. We've got two guests. We've got a singer-songwriter named Donica Knight, who is an amazing singer. We also have celebrity wilderness man Michael Modzelewski, who is a pretty amazing guy, has a pretty amazing story about living in the wilderness in Alaska for a couple years, and then all of a sudden becoming Cosmo's Man of the Year, and he was on Oprah a couple times, and just a fascinating guy with a fascinating story, so he'll be on. I just want to remind everybody that we have the Dusty Cover Show premiering on Thursday, December 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and it'll be the premiere show, so please tune into that. It should be a good show. It's about authors and books. She's going to play music. It's a good show. I think I hear our Periscope Girl calling in now.
Aye, Captain. Ahoy, Cindy. Periscope Girl reporting. So, if you haven't joined Periscope crew yet, just sign up free and jump aboard for the fun. And look lively now, me buccaneers, 'cause Periscope be forging connections across the sea, so it is. Me, myself, I be doing a half-an-hour show on the Parachute TV, which is the landing page of the best periscopers in the world, all hand-picked and worthy crew. Rawr. But me octopus Jenny stays on the submarine, as she's fair camera shy, but she be listening to me periscopes while she's swabbing the decks. So, my hearties, it be a fine, beautiful day for setting sail, and for watching periscopes, and you could see some fantastic music. You may not understand some of the words. You could feel the heart and the soul in the songs. So I wish you all the wind at your back on your travels. Over and out.
Okay, Periscope Girl, thank you very much for that wonderful report. Say hello to Jenny for me. Shake all 8 of her hands. And we will be right back with Donica Knight after this short commercial message.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps from the UK, record producer, engineer. You might have heard of me. I've worked with artists from Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Bad Company, Twisted Sister, Robbie Williams, Oasis, many great bands and artists in the past and the present and hopefully in the future. But you can work with me as well. You know, all you got to do is get in touch with me on eppsmusicproductions.com. That's EWPSproductionsmusic.com. And I can help you with your productions and with your recordings. A lot of people do home recordings now, which you can only take so far. Maybe they need a bit of professional help. So get in touch with me and we can sort it out. And thanks for Douglas Coleman for giving me the spot. Thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.
Okay, with me today is Donica Knight, an acclaimed singer-songwriter hailing from Montgomery, Alabama. Donica's unique blend of rock, country, and blues has led to a rigorous touring schedule in the Southeast, performing more than 300 dates, opening for both country and rock superstars as diverse as Leonard Skinner, Styx, Hank Williams Jr., Kid Rock, Kenny Rogers, Little River Band, Skid Row, REO Speedwagon, Three Doors Down, and many others. She has written and recorded duets with country legend Ronnie Milsap. She also has 2 co-writes in the upcoming Tracy Lawrence film, Alabama Dirt. Her most recent collaboration is with producer Jim Huff, recorded in Los Angeles. The self-penned Can't Buy a Southern Girl EP features the scorching lead single and video Love Ain't a Prize. Please welcome Donica Knight. How are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm having just a beautiful day. I know Thanksgiving's right around the corner, and
yeah, tomorrow.
I've definitely had a relaxing morning, and ate some Pop-Tarts in bed, and that was quite nice.
Now, are you cooking, or is you going to somebody's house, or you going out to dinner, or what do you do on Thanksgiving?
Well, we're going to try something new. We're going to go out to eat and have Thanksgiving dinner out at a restaurant, and then come back for dessert and homemade bread.
Oh, well, that sounds good. Saves you all the work of cooking and cleaning. That's a lot of work doing a Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, the whole cleaning thing was what we were trying to avoid. Our family, we work all the time, and my parents, they work 24/7, 6 days out of the week, and so whenever we do Thanksgiving and we got to go to work the next day, so we don't want to work. We want to enjoy and be thankful for not working.
Oh, sure. And it's a holiday. I mean, you just want to relax. Let somebody else do the cooking and cleaning, you know? Anyways, let's talk about you. Can you give me a little background on yourself, please? Just kind of tell people where you grew up and how you got into music.
I'm from Alabama. I was born and raised here in a town called Millbrook, which is by Montgomery, which is Alabama's capital. It's not as big as Las Vegas, and the city lights are not as bright as Las Vegas in Montgomery, but there are some city lights. And in Millbrook, where I'm from, we kind of have some countryside and some space and look out and see the lights, and that's nice. I'm born and raised here. I'm a Southern girl. I love fishing and shooting guns and riding four-wheelers, and especially during this type of weather, because it's got a little bit of a cool breeze and all the leaves are changing. So it's been nice taking some time.
So tell us about your musical background. How did you get started with music and singing? And
Yeah, well, I sang when I was a little girl. I always would sing. I had my first solo in first grade. There was 90 kids, and only one kid got the solo, and that was me. My
Wow.
musical teacher just saw something in me when I was in first grade, and that led on to having the solos all growing up and having the big songs. And I did show choir, and I did church choirs, and I always dreamed of being a singer. That's what I wanted to be, was a professional singer. But also with that dream, I had another dream, which was sports. I love sports. I played baseball for several years with the boys because my brother was a big baseball guy, and I wanted to be like him, and I wanted to be as good as him. So I played baseball and made the all-star team, and I was the first baseman because I was taller, because the girls hit their growth spurts, and then I swapped over to softball. So I was really heavily involved with sports and singing. That passion for singing was just always there. It was my favorite thing to do after practice. And I went to college after high school at Auburn University, and I was studying special education and exercise science. And with exercise science, I would go to the nursing homes, and we would have these water noodles that you swim with, and we'd use those as bench press weights, and we'd circle our wrists, and we had a morning workout. And after the workouts, I would sing for hours. And same with the special needs. I would volunteer at camps at the and help all the special needs with their daily activities and moving around and whatever it was that they needed specifically. And I would also sing to them, and I would sing when they had the karaoke night. And I just had this, I realized that I was learning and studying something to help people. And
that's great.
Donica means to give, and I love to give to people. And the way that I always helped the most was with my voice, and I wasn't studying it or doing much about it, and so I knew that I had to. I knew that I had to use my gift. So I left Auburn University, and that was one of the hardest decisions because I loved it. I was in a sorority, and I had my friends there, and I played intramural sports, and I love football. So I had season tickets to in the student section at Auburn, and I was always on the front row. And I would go to the baseball games, and I just loved Auburn and love Auburn. Making that decision to leave was difficult, but I knew what I had to do. And so I did leave and start pursuing music, and I joined a band. It was an 80s cover band, and that was the very first group. And after you perform, you get your paycheck. And that was my first steps, and it was so much fun. I fell in love with the art of performing.
So where did you go when you left Auburn?
I went home. I went back to my family's, and tried to figure out where it was that I needed to go.
Oh,
So
I
I
see.
started
Okay.
researching where people go out to sing, and how could I start doing this. And I heard there was this thing called live band karaoke. Have you ever heard of that before?
Not exactly, no.
Well, there's this venue called the Iron Horse in Birmingham, Alabama, which Birmingham is one of the largest cities in Alabama, if not the largest city. But I found out that there is a venue that offered something called live band karaoke, and they had a list of songs that everybody knew. And if you wanted to get up and sing, you told them what song you wanted to sing. There you go. So if you had never sang with a live band, there was an opportunity for you. And I hopped up at this live band karaoke. It just so happens that some people from the 80s cover band were there scoping out people hopping up. And after I sang, offered me a job, or they offered me a tryout. And then I went to the tryout, and then I had never played in a band before. I had only done the church thing, so it was a different experience for me. And we had a show that was booked when they said, "You have the job." And there was a show 2 weeks later, and I learned all those 50-something songs, and I didn't know these tunes because I wasn't born in this era, and or that decade, and so it was a lot of fun. I slaved away in my house learning Madonna and Prince and AC/DC and
Wow.
Journey and all these different songs from the 80s. And I hopped up on the stage 2 weeks later, and I did it. And that was my first time doing that. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was at some bar in Birmingham, and they had disco balls and all these little disco lights, and I had on my 80s attire, my little black and red and white dress with circles on it, and my big poofy crimped hair, which my hair is not normally crimped. I was excited and crimped it all up for that show, and I had my makeup going extra thick and glittery, and I just loved it so much, and it was a lot of fun. And I learned that day and that night how much I like to perform with a band.
Let's listen to one of your songs. Which one do you want to play first?
I'd love you to play Love Ain't a Prize.
Okay. You want to tell us anything about that?
Yeah. Love Ain't a Prize is the first single from my brand new EP that's coming out next year called Can't Buy a Southern Girl. And it was recorded in Los Angeles. And I'm so proud to say that I wrote this song and that I wrote every song on this EP. And it's the first time that I've been able to 100% say what I want to say and be myself, record the music that I wanted to record, and write the songs that I wanted to say. And I'm just, Love Ain't a Prize is a special tune to me. There's a video up on YouTube that you can go find. If you type in Donica Night, Love Ain't a Prize will pop up at the top, and you'll see how I perform this song live and what it means to my soul when I do sing it.
Okay. Well, let's have a listen to it. This is Love Ain't a Prize by Donica Knight.
My love ain't a prize, my love ain't a prize, can't buy this woman. My love ain't a prize, and I reckon I know, 'cause mama taught me so. You cannot buy it. My love ain't a prize, I'll be an open book if you treat me right. But my love ain't a prize, no, you sure can't buy it. Ooh, give me something I need to keep my soul alive. 'Cause what I want is in your heart, living in your arms and eyes. But you can't buy this southern girl, can't buy this southern girl. You can't buy this southern girl's heart. My love ain't a prize, my love ain't a prize. You can't buy this southern girl's heart. My love ain't a prize, oh no. My love ain't a prize, oh no. If you're looking for a friend, you know that I won't hide. I'll give you hope, trust and sacrifice. And I reckon you'll know as the time goes by that I'll buy it, Lord. Your love ain't a prize. I'll be an open book and I'll treat you right. 'Cause what I want is to be yours and for you to be mine. But you can't buy this southern girl, you can't buy this southern girl, you can't buy this southern girl's heart. My love ain't a prize, my love ain't a prize. You can't buy this southern girl's heart, yeah. My love ain't a prize, oh no. You can't buy my heart, you can't buy my heart. My love ain't a prize, oh no. But if you dig real deep, you won't believe the treasure you will find, the treasure you will find, yeah. Can't buy this southern girl, you can't buy this southern girl, you can't buy this southern girl's heart. My love ain't a prize, my love ain't a prize. You can't buy this southern girl's heart. Oh, you can't buy this southern girl, you can't buy this southern girl, can't buy this southern girl's heart. No, love ain't a prize, my love ain't a prize. You can't buy this southern girl's heart, eh. So don't you get to thinking you can buy my southern heart. Oh, oh.
Yeah, very nice. I like that.
Thank you. Thank
Great
you.
singing. Yeah, fabulous. Who were some of your influences for music? Who do you like to listen to?
I love Bonnie Raitt. Bonnie Raitt is
okay.
one of my favorite vocalists. She is my favorite vocalist. I love her voice and what she has to say and how she says it. I love the blues. I love rock. I also love Adele
Yeah, Adele's fabulous.
and Miss Dolly Parton. I like or I love her songs and how she writes. But I love rock and roll as well. I'm a big CCR girl, and I like AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and Janis Joplin.
Oh, right. Well, your music is kind of a hybrid, sort of between country and rock. It's not really one or the other. It's more rock, actually. But it has a certain country flavor about it. Like if you were making music soup, it's got country spice. But
I like that.
it's primarily rock and roll. I can hear. But like with that song, you had a banjo in it. And the banjo kind of adds the southern spice. I think that's what did it. If you took the banjo out, it could probably be a straight rock and roll song. But I like the banjo. I think the banjo adds a nice touch to that song. Very nice.
Adds a nice spice.
Adds a nice spice to it, yeah.
This whole EP, each song, I wanted to specialize one a specific instrument for each song that I love. And banjo is an instrument that I absolutely adore, and I just
Me too.
it tickles my fancy, and I love hearing the banjo. So Love Ain't a Prize to have the banjo. And then some other songs on my new EP that's coming out, you're going to hear what I call the saxophone, because it's saxophone, but it's real sexy sounding.
Okay.
And that's on my song Acting Like a Lady, which is going to be my next single. So I look forward to you hearing that one, because it is total rock and roll. That's a rock and roll song.
Oh, okay.
And then I have another song that's, I love big drums. There's something about just big, thick sounding drums. And that's going to be on Stomp. And I think that you're going to be surprised when you hear Can't Buy a Southern Girl EP. But maybe not you, since you did catch that it is rock.
Well, what I'm a little confused here, because this says that it was released in October 2015, but you're saying it hasn't come out yet.
That was Love Ain't a Prize, the single.
Oh, okay. All right. That's what
Yeah.
it is. But the EP is coming out when again?
It comes out next year, early February.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. I get it.
Yep, I just I wanted to release Love Ain't a Prize and let people get a taste of my new record that I'm dropping in February.
Okay.
Yeah, but that one did come out in October. The video did, and which is on YouTube-Vivo, and it's also available on iTunes, and it became available November 1st.
Okay. Well, let's get to your other song. This one is called You Make It Beautiful. Can you tell us something about that, please?
I'd love to. This song, I recorded it in Nashville. And it's the only song that I have that's just a piano and my voice. But it's called You Make It Beautiful. And the lyrics to it are just absolutely stunning. And I did not write this song.
Okay.
It inspired me to want to write the entire record that I did. But this is my ballad.
Do you want to mention who wrote it?
Yeah. A guy named Marty Fredrickson. He wrote a lot of stuff for Aerosmith. So you might catch that it's kind of a little bit rock, but just stripped down. When I do it just acoustic with guitars, you can definitely hear that it's light rock.
Okay.
But Marty Fredrickson, also a girl named Lindsay Taylor. And she wrote the song that Aerosmith just released as well for his first single in the country, Love Is Your Name. So we got some heavy hitter. We have some heavy songwriter hitters on this song.
Oh, big time, yeah.
It's real special.
That's great.
I think that you're going to love it.
Okay, well, let's listen to it. You Make It Beautiful by Donica Knight.
Staring at you through the candlelight, your silhouette. The way you look tonight, I never ever will forget. My troubles disappear whenever you are here. It's like a little piece of heaven. You hold my hand and I can feel the sadness melt away. The way you touch me takes me to another time and place. It's supernatural when you're in control. It's like our love is made of magic. You make it all worth the while. When I'm caught in the middle of a hurricane, you come along and everything's okay. Here in the darkness, you light up my soul. You make it beautiful, and I'm lost in the storm, out in the pouring rain. Your arms around me, now I feel no pain. When everything's broken, your love is my home. You make it beautiful, beautiful, whoa, 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 beautiful, whoa. My heart is beating fast, I'm feeling like it could explode. The weight of everything is crushing me, I'm losing hope. Just one look from you, suddenly I'm brand new. It's like nothing else matters. You make it all worth a while. When I'm caught in the middle of a hurricane, you come along and everything's okay. Here in the darkness, you light up my soul. You make it beautiful, and I'm lost in the storm, out in the pouring rain. Your arms around me, now I feel no pain. When everything's broken, your love is my home. You make it beautiful, beautiful, wow, 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 beautiful, wow. When I run out of breath, you fill up my lungs. Going through hell, your water on my tongue. You never let me give up. You make it beautiful, wow, 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 beautiful, wow. When I'm caught in the middle of a hurricane, you come along and everything's okay. Here in the darkness, you light up my soul. You make it beautiful, and I'm lost in the storm, out in the pouring rain. Your arms around me and I feel no pain. Everything's broken, your love hits my home. You make it beautiful, beautiful, wow, 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 beautiful, wow, beautiful, wow, 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 beautiful, wow.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. That's another great one. Love
Thanks,
that.
Douglas.
Yes, I like piano ballads. I'm always kind of a soft heart for piano ballads. I like rock and roll too, but something about a piano ballad just kind of takes me away for the 3 or 4 minutes that I'm listening to it, you know? My mind just goes off into somewhere else. That was nice.
Mine does too. It definitely it'll take you into a land that you want to be in.
Sure. Oh, it's very tranquilizing. Well, you know what? We have run out of time. In fact, we've gone over. It goes so fast.
It's good to go over sometimes.
Yeah, I know it. Please tell everybody where they can find you on the web. Please tell us your websites and where people can look you up and look you over and buy your music, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, well, you can buy my music on iTunes and Amazon, but it's also available at the easiest place to find everything, which is on my website, www.donicanight.com. But I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all the social media sites, and those links are on my website, or you can just go to whatever social media outlet that you like the most and type in my name and find me and follow me or friend me. And I love talking to people. I love meeting new people and making new friends and that enjoy my music and talking about music or anything in general. I love people, and I thank you so much, Douglas, for having me and
it was my
allowing me to be
pleasure.
on your show.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
While living on a wilderness island in the Inside Passage to Alaska for years in isolation, he wrote his first book called Inside Passage, Living with Killer Whales, Bald Eagles, and Quietall Indians. It was published by HarperCollins in New York City, and unbeknownst to him, Cosmopolitan magazine chose him as one of their Bachelors of the Month and eventually Man of the Year. At the same time, Alaska Men's Magazine made him their centerfold story. He was on the Oprah Winfrey Show twice, once to tell about his Cosmopolitan magazine experience, and the second time to be a romance coach, helping a local Chicago guy get back in good graces with his wife. Please welcome Michael Modzelewski. How are you, Michael?
Great, Douglas. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really an honor.
Oh, my pleasure. I got to ask you, I read through your introduction and your bio. I want to get to the living in Alaska and all that. Let's just back up a little bit, and I want to know, what were you doing before you went to Alaska?
I was a freelance writer, a journalist, and I was starving to death, kind of going assignment to assignment. New York Times, LA Times, various magazines. But, I'd go off and cover wildlife and adventure and exotic places around the world. And then I'd eat peanut butter and top ramen noodles for like 2 months until I could pick up the next gig. So at that point in my life, I was an author in search of his first book, something that I really could put my heart into rather than just my head.
Okay, what year was that?
That was early 80s.
Okay.
And it all really started in Cleveland, Ohio, when my mother read me to sleep every single night. And, the Grimm's fairy tales, King Arthur, all the wonderful fables of the world. And one night she read to me Jack London, Call of the Wild.
Oh.
Why, 6, 7-year-old boy in an industrial city like Cleveland, Ohio? I don't know why that story resonated, but she really planted the seeds at that time. And what's interesting is she said that when my eyes were closed and my chest was moving up and down, in other words, when I was asleep, she kept reading. And I think it's been proven if you want to learn a foreign language, you let the tape recorder run all night. Because
I've heard that.
Even though we're asleep, I think our consciousness is like the pilot light in an oven. It's always on. And, we're always absorbing things, even when our eyes are closed. So that was really the beginning, the love of language, story. It was the beginning of, you could say, my career as a writer, as a public speaker, with each of those nights getting, the magic words put into your ear.
Okay, so you were working as a freelance writer. You weren't making a lot of money. And then what made you just decide to up and go to Alaska?
Well, are there accidents in life, or are we following a blueprint? From what has happened to me so far, I really believe there's angels on earth. They might not have wings growing out of their back. Oftentimes, people come into our lives right under our nose in the everyday humdrum of life, and they put us on our life path. Maybe they introduce us to a spouse. They give us a correction or guidance. So I'm living in Aspen, Colorado. Just graduated from Indiana University, had a great journalism school. Figured I'd take a year off, be a ski bum. And I was writing some nature film scripts and going out on assignment once in a while as a writer. And every summer, Aspen is wonderful because they have as much cultural experiences there, as many cultural experiences as they do the skiing in the winter. And one of the famous things they have is an international design conference. And designers from all over the world come for this weekend conference to talk shop and swap ideas. So I couldn't afford the ticket, but if you volunteered as a local and put up the tents, you got in for free. Here I am the very first day at this international design conference, just blown away by, the 5-star talent there. And at lunchtime, they said, okay, everybody, and there were about 1,000 attendees. Go out into the meadow next to the tents. We're going to watch hang gliders come off the top of Ajax Mountain. So there's about 1,000 people, Douglas. We all have our heads back. We're sort of slowly spinning around, watching these human kites twirl down through the sky. And I bumped into a back. But why wasn't I standing 18 inches to the left or 14 inches to the right? I bumped into the back of a woman, a French Canadian from Vancouver, British Columbia. We fell in love, skipped out of the conference, went camping up in the mountains. She went home. I got a letter a day. Come and see me. So I had never been to the West Coast. I hitchhiked all the way to Los Angeles from Colorado, up the West Coast, 2 weeks on Geneviève's sailboat, going north in the Inside Passage to Alaska. And I didn't even know this place was up there. It is so stunning, the beauty. You have 15,000-foot mountains coming out of the ocean, fjords, killer whales were escorting our boat, bears are pulling salmon out of the water. And 2 weeks on the boat, we go back to her apartment. The very last night, I'm due to fly back to Colorado, and the telephone rings. And it's a man that owned a wilderness island 200 miles north. And he got Geneviève's phone number 9 years before at a party. And he could very rarely leave his island paradise. So my whole fate, my whole future hung in that moment of this guy wanting to take Geneviève out. But Geneviève goes, oh, Will, I remember you. You live in paradise. You play your guitar to the killer whales, and they come in and listen. You take your coat off to weed your garden, and the bees make a hive in your pockets. I would love to go out with you, but I have company. Michael's here. Douglas, 99.9% of men would have hung up the phone or, would have said, okay, I'll catch you in another 9 years. Why this happened, I'll never know. Will said, all right, the three of us will go out. So we went for Chinese food. Genevieve is ignored. Will had what I wanted. He had wilderness. He had Jack London. He had paradise. He had everything that I wanted to write that first book about. I mean, I almost reached across the table and grabbed them by the lapels to invite myself there, but I would never do that. And I think he read my mind because he was in a hurry and he said, Mike, I got to go, but I'm giving you a formal invitation to my island, 200 miles north, 100 years back in time. So Will left and the fortune cookies came. I crack open mine thinking nothing of it. It says, you are going on a journey to an exotic land. I mean, do you need a hammer to hit you over the head? So
Well,
I was going to
yeah,
stay
okay.
2 weeks, and it turned into 2 years. My dad called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police because he thought I was smoking funny tobacco. I quit my job. I didn't go home. I stayed there, high risk, high yield, rolled the dice, and it all happened because of that decision. It all happened because of bumping into a back of a woman.
Okay, so you went to this island. This guy, what was his name again?
Will Maloff.
Okay, was he there as well?
Yeah, he owned the island. He was from Mendocino, California originally, and he wanted to create a utopia where he could sort of have a commune of people that would live this idyllic existence in nature. But of course, it never worked because nobody wanted to chop the wood, pull the weeds in the garden, do the hard work. When you live that way, it's harder than any 9-to-5 job.
I can imagine. So it was the two of you that lived there? She didn't go with you?
No, Genevieve, had her practice as an architect. So Will, basically, we set up a trade. I could stay there for free if I would in turn free him up. In other words, if I was a caretaker so that he could go travel for 6 or 8 months at a time.
Oh, I see. So while he was gone, then you were there alone.
Right.
Okay. Describe the place to me, because we're on radio. People have to use their imagination. I'm assuming no electricity.
No electricity, no telephone,
right?
No washing machine, no television, outhouse for a toilet, nearest neighbor 12 miles away. The island is a mile long, half a mile wide.
It's an island. Okay, so to get anywhere, you're going by boat, right? Or plane.
Either boat or by float plane.
Okay.
So it's pretty much deep immersion into solitude. And then the closest town is a Native American town where you could go to get supplies every few months. The island had a cougar, resident cougar in a cave 800 feet up, a black bear that allowed me to eat blackberries with a big bush at the top of the island, and killer whales. The front yard in front of this island is called Blackfish Sound, and the natives' nickname up there for the killer whale is the blackfish. Scientists come from all over the world to study killer whales right there near this island. You've got fjords slicing into the coast behind it, northern lights during the wintertime, absolutely magical. The purest air you could ever breathe. In fact, people call it champagne air. You can get drunk or giddy just breathing that pure oxygen up there.
What did you do for food?
Well, I was very subsistent. And, this is what I always blow people away when I do my programs and presentations. And I tell them that I lived for 2 years, and money-wise, I spent the grand total of $67.54.
Wow.
I mean, you and I could go out for lunch right now and easily spend much more than that.
Sure.
Because no stores there, and the ocean was the refrigerator. If you couldn't catch salmon, there were cod, ling cod, and red snapper that were available just like lifting up the refrigerator door. You would line up the coordinates, the big rock on that island with the pine tree on that island. And you would get in that apex of those two lines. You drop your jig down, you feel it fall into the hole, and you pull up this beautiful, 8 to 10 pound red snapper that would be on the barbecue or the fire pit 10 minutes later. You call it twitching fillets. I mean, you're eating fish so fresh, it's literally jumping around on your plate.
Did you have to do any kind of winter preparation? I mean, some things you couldn't get.
That's a great question because, so all summer instead of being in the moment, you have to be ahead of the moment because winter's coming as late September, early October. So you're chopping 10 cords of firewood. You're catching salmon nonstop, putting them in the smokehouse so that you have enough smoked salmon and protein, put up in the winter that would be stored in the root cellar of your cabin. Open the trap door on the floor, and there you have all that food stored. So everybody up there in Alaska, because winter is so long, about 7 months, and so unforgiving with the cold, that you definitely have to be a squirrel, stockpiling the nuts all through the summertime.
So what else would you have besides salmon?
Oh, I had a half-acre garden. I actually got into, the sterilizing of the jars where you put the rubber rings on the ball jars and pressure seal them. And you could put a lot of vegetables into those ball jars. And what's interesting is people in British Columbia and Alaska up there, they barter for everything. So there was a distant neighbor that had a fruit orchard who would bring by these jars of fresh peaches that were also sort of sterilized in those ball jars. So deep in February, when it's blowing 65 miles an hour, the rain is hitting your windows horizontally like BB shot, and you're housebound, for days on end, go down in that root cellar and get some of that fresh smoked sockeye salmon and open a jar of those peaches, and you are living right.
How long were you there? How long were you at this cabin?
The first time I went, I was there for 2 years. And of those 2 years, and that was 2 years uninterrupted, of the 2 years, I was probably totally alone. Where Will was gone, I would say at least 20 of the months of the 24.
Now, I suppose the next logical question is, what brought you back?
The lack of female companionship. The Alaska government was very curious a few years ago as to the ratio of the sexes between its citizens. So they sent surveyors out into the bush to count heads. And they came back surprised. They discovered in the bush of BC and Alaska, for every 10 men, there's only one female. And the women up there have a great saying. They say, yeah, the odds are good, but the goods are odd. And for lack of female companionship, no dates for 2 years. Every time there was a full moon, I would be out on the beach with the wolf pack that lived on the island, howling just for loneliness. And the loneliness up there wasn't out of depression or despair. It was when something magical happened. And that was a near daily occurrence. When a killer whale, when you're in a 17-foot kayak and a killer whale breaches, jumps into the air 20 feet, full body length, northern lights, iridescent green and red color shimmering the sky around your cabin. It's at moments like that you're just dying for somebody else to be there, to share it with.
Do you think loneliness for human beings is completely psychological, or is there actually a physical need? And I don't mean sexual.
I think genetically we are social creatures. I think when we were hunter-gatherers, which was not that long ago, we were in tribes. I think very few of us were alone. I think we were in even more than a family. I think we were in sort of extended family, tribes, communes, call it what you may. So I think rarely were we ever alone, as we were evolving in nature.
Well, it's interesting because in places like the Supermax prison in Colorado, the punishment is isolation. And I'm just wondering if that is as much physical torture to human beings as it is psychological. I've never isolated myself that completely. I know I had a hell of a time adjusting when I got married after being single until I was 43 years old.
Wow.
So it took me a long time to adjust that all of a sudden I have to live a different way because I can't have everything exactly where I put it.
Was it better overall to make that adjustment?
Yeah. Yeah, because now I wouldn't want to go back. I don't know exactly what it was that changed for the better. I suppose it's the companionship, but again, I wasn't completely alone. I would go to work. There would be 50 people at work. I lived in a city. There was all kinds of people around. But you can be lonely. They talk about New York City being the loneliest city in the world. You can be alone amongst 5 million people.
Exactly. Lonely in the crowd. Yeah.
Lonely in the crowd. So I'm guessing it's kind of the same thing in one sense, in the psychological sense, but definitely not in the physical sense. All right. So you were there, then you came back because no female companionship. Did you get back together with
Genevieve? No.
Genevieve?
What actually pulled me away from the island was my first book, and the great thing was of having that solitude, being that alone, is I could read and I could write.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Uninterrupted. There was nobody else to worry about keeping alive. In those long, cold winter nights when it would get dark at 4 p.m. and the sun wouldn't come up till 10 or 11 in the morning, I'd fire up the ring of kerosene lamps and sit at that table. And I probably read 400 to 500 books. And I wrote my first book like an idiot, not knowing the publishing process of, getting an agent and how it all works to get over the castle wall of a publishing house. I sent the raw manuscript that had fish guts on the paper and coffee stains, and it was half, handwritten. And, I'm sure it had an aroma to it from wood smoke. And I put it in the mail and figured I'd send it to New York City to HarperCollins, which is one of the biggest publishers in the world.
Sure.
Every publishing house has what they call a slush pile, and it's unsolicited manuscripts that come in unrepresentative by an agent, which is the normal process. And Dan Biel, the editor, who had a long Polish name that somehow got snipped off, saw this Polish name on a manuscript cover sticking out of the bottom of the pile of Mount Everest, the Mount Everest of paper and manuscripts. He slid it out of the bottom of the pile, and he was having a sandwich at his desk. And he figured, well, fellow Pole, I'll give it, 10 minutes of my time. He couldn't stop reading. They decided to publish the book. And then unbeknownst to me, a friend had sent my picture of a sled dog kissing me wearing my bright red Alaskan parka.
I think I've seen that picture on your website.
Cosmopolitan magazine near that same time. And every month in Cosmo, which is, it's the best-selling women's magazine in the world. It goes to 100 countries, translated into 87 languages. And right near that same time when Inside Passage was published, they made me one of their Bachelors of the Month. Because every month they stick a single guy in Cosmo magazine where women can write to him. So this double whammy happened at the same time. I left the island to publicize the book, and I went from famine to feast, no dates, not even seeing a woman for 2 years in the wilderness. And I had 5,000 letters from women all over the world waiting from being Mr. November.
Were you naked?
No. That ridiculous thing. Remember Burt Reynolds? I think was he the first guy that?
Right.
He looked like a bear. I remember, I was a kid and I saw him, and he's got his hand strategically placed, but he was so hairy that I asked my mother if he was actually a bear or a man. Isn't it? Well,
he was, and I think they had him posing with like a fur coat or something, just to accentuate all of that.
But it wasn't overtly sexual. It was more about sort of my accomplishments. And the Bachelors lately have gotten sort of like a reflection of our culture and in your face and all of that. It's more, shirt off, how many abs can we count, that kind of thing. And when I got off the airplane in New York City and I was walking on concrete, my legs wouldn't work because my muscles had changed. Because when you walk in the wilderness up there, there's pine trees that are dropping needles and detritus for thousands of years on the forest floor. And you literally have a bounce in your step walking in the woods. It's like being on a trampoline.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm literally walking like a drunken sailor. People are knocking me over because I'm too slow. I'm too in the one moment.
Right.
And they're doing, 22 things at hyperspeed in New York. Everything was coming at me too fast, multi-layered. I remember going into the men's room. I'm probably having like a nervous breakdown. And I slammed the toilet door, and this automatic toilet kept roaring at me. And I'm going, wait a minute, I've come from this world. I left this world, but I don't remember it like this. It was like being, that great book, The Stranger in a Strange Land. It was like a Martian crash landing. The wilderness had given me that fresh perspective.
Okay, so you left the island, your book gets published, and then you get invited to go on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first time on Oprah, she was doing a show on how couples meet in unusual ways.
Now, how did she find out about you?
I was doing so much TV and Closer Look with Faith Daniels, and there were so many newspaper articles, and Oprah's producers are always scouting,
Oh, all right.
For people to fit into a theme show. And, the way coming from the wilderness, meeting my wife, they picked up, I think it was in the Arizona Republic or one of the newspapers. So phone call came and it was like, yeah, right. Who is this really? But Oprah was absolutely amazing. I mean, and it's hard to forget, Doug, that what you're saying is going out live to 400 million people.
All right.
I mean,
yeah.
You can't even think about that. I mean, you just have to pretend you're talking to Oprah or you'd freeze up.
Now, it says you were on the show twice, once to tell about the Cosmo experience, and the second time to be a romance coach, helping a local Chicago guy get back in good graces with his wife. How did living on an island for 2 years all by yourself give you any kind of merit to be a romance coach?
Well, it wasn't so much the living in the wilderness, although that led to my book being published, which sort of helped me become the Cosmo Bachelor. But it was really the dates with the Cosmo girls. And my literary agent at that time, he said, dude, Sigmund Freud once asked, what do women really want? You've got a shot at finding out. Take notes. Why don't you study these women like you studied the wildlife in Alaska? So the title of the book about, the Cosmo experiences, everything I learned about women, it's called Wild Life, 2 separate words, meaning a life that is wild and also studying the women as if they were wildlife, the misadventures of a Cosmo Bachelor. So it was more that crash course of dating the women, taking notes, finding out what they liked and didn't like that got me the gig as the romance coach on Oprah.
So what did you conclude?
Oh, I mean, it fills a book. It's just phenomenal to be blessed. I feel so fortunate. Each and every woman is a goddess, should be treated that way by males. I believe they're so much smarter than we are. In fact, it's been proven the 2 lobes of their brain have more connective tissue than male brains. I mean, all the pivotal women in my life that have advanced me as spiritually, mentally, and physically, all those people have been female. Not that I don't have great male friends, but there are just some absolute goddesses that walk among us. And I've been fortunate to meet a few.
Do you think that men should treat women differently than they treat other men?
I would say equally, but I would say with more respect. They are the life givers. It's the way that men come into this world. And I just believe that the first sign of a society going backward is when they are not educating, allowing women to be educated, not giving them equal rights. Trying to hold back women in any way means that society is going backwards.
Well, that's most of the Middle East, isn't it?
Yes. It's like no accident that the feminist movement and the environmental movement, they both started at the very same time.
Well, I suppose there's another parallel that's not quite as lovely as that one, but obesity in America also started around the same time as the feminist movement, too. Because what happened was after World War II, women started going to work, and they didn't have time to cook the meals properly like their mothers did. So all of these Madison Avenue companies started creating the TV dinners and the processed food and the stuff with all the processed carbohydrates that's making us all fat in America.
Interesting correlation.
Yeah, so, if you want to blame obesity on the feminist movement, you could do so.
I can hear the hissing of the summer lawns right now.
And, okay, the last question I got to ask you, then we got to wrap this one up, Michael, is you said that there is a movie deal. Are they going to do a movie deal on your book?
What we're doing right now is I've decided instead of a 90-minute movie deal, and there's too many dates, there's too many females to pack into one film. So what we're shopping around right now is doing a TV series. Because as you might know, if you watch any television, actors used to look down their noses at TV But now the best stories are being told on Showtime, HBO, these amazing episodic series. So I want to slow it down. Each episode is one woman that, the M character in Wildlife dates, learns from, has wild and crazy adventures with. And so that's what we're just kind of changing course right now. And I think it would be better to, take it out 4 or 5 seasons. And then if it goes well, end up as a feature film, because Alaska is one of the main characters in the story. And it is so stunningly beautiful up there that it translates visually so well as well.
So these shows are going to be set after you come back from your wilderness adventure, and now you're the big popular guy who is dating all of these women, and you're going to date a different woman for each show?
Right, but we're also going to have flashbacks to the wilderness.
Oh, I see. Okay.
With comparisons, because there's a totem goddess that kind of has an important part in the story that guides his way. Because my whole life as a speaker and a writer is about returning the divine feminine to this earth. Because males have sort of done a horrible job, testosterone poisoned. And let's give the women time again to sort of care for the earth and show us the way with Mother Nature.
Now, is this just in talks now, or is it a signed deal, or almost a signed deal?
In talks. I mean, there's so many steps. It's like trying to catch lightning in a bottle, get the right people to work with, where they don't make too many changes. And the trouble with anything that's sexually themed with Hollywood is they want to trash it up. And, it was interesting. They did a worldwide poll of what was the most erotic scene you've ever seen in a movie. And they asked people of varying cultures, everybody from, New Guinea to Paris, France. The one scene that was picked unanimously as being the most erotic was Rhett Butler carrying Scarlett O'Hara up the staircase to the bedroom. And I guess she was kicking her legs or whatever. The next shot you see is her face the next morning on the pillow. And the actress, I forget her name, whoever played Scarlett O'Hara, her face showed you everything that went on the night before.
Yeah.
Shoot the sex over the shoulder. You don't have to show it graphically.
I think artistically, it's better to not show it and just imply it.
I've tried to load it up with humor. I mean, it's romantic comedy with probably accent on the second word, because, sex is hilarious when you really think about it.
Oh, yes, absolutely it is. Some of the best laugh attacks I've had were in bed. Well, Michael, listen, thank you very much for coming on the show. Good luck with the movie thing, the show. I hope that comes out. That sounds like something I would watch.
Well, if we can push it through, it'd be great to have a radio podcast interview where Michael is like at the low point. He's overwhelmed. He's in sugar shock from too many dates. And he is sort of psychoanalyzed by Douglas Coleman. It would be fun.
I'm in for it. I'm up for that. That sounds good.
That'd be fun. Hey, I got to write that scene in. That would be good.
Well, hopefully you get final cut.
I hope so, because one thing that's helping is it actually happened to me. It actually happened to a living person, instead of a screenwriter saying, well, my imagination is as good or better than yours, that kind of thing.
I think people always appreciate it when it's a real story.
Yeah, based on a true story, that sort of thing.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Thank you very much.
Douglas, thank you so much.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Michael Modzelewski and Donica Knight. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.
To the mile, you've got to run, not walk. To give us a